Hi guys, it's album review time. We've got W.E.T and Apex. So as always, I'm so grateful that record companies send me stuff early. This album is being released on the 28th of March on Frontiers Records. It's the 5th album from W.E.T. There's 11 tracks on this album. Of course, this is a supergroup, and we all know that supergroup gets bounded about, whatever, supergroup, that actual terminology gets bandied about so many projects. And there are more projects now than ever in the music industry. But supergroup, when talking about W.E.T, has never been so true on this occasion. That terminology has never been so true. These guys are just brilliant musicians. Of course, if we're going through the musicians, you've got Jeff Scott Soto on vocals, makes up the T of W.E.T, from Talisman, of course, and many other projects. Jeff Scott Soto is just an amazing singer, and he sounds fantastic on this album all the way through it. One of the most charismatic, and one of them singers that you hear his voice, immediately it's him. I love his vocals, especially on the W.E.T projects. And then we have Eric Martinson, of course. Vocals on this album more than ever, actually. I think 3 tracks in total. He takes lead vocals alongside Jeff Scott Soto. Guitar, keys, songwriting, producer. A man of many talents, of course, just all over this album. And then he's the E, of course, of W.E.T. And then you have Robert Saul of Work of Art. He's on guitar and keys, and he's the W of W.E.T, of course. So the guitar work across this album is fantastic. The keys are always just fantastic. I mean, Work of Art, I do miss Work of Art as well, and you can really hear that sort of AOR influence from Robert Saul coming through on this album. And then you've got Magnus Henriksson on guitar, of course, another part of the E for Eclipse. I love Magnus Henriksson. I've sung his praises across many videos of mine. One of the most underrated, one of the most brilliantly technical guitarists out there. Then you've got Andreas Passmark on the bass. This is a really well-produced album. We've already said that Eric Martinson has produced this, and bass always plays such an important part of Eric Martinson's albums. When he mixes and produces albums, it really pops on this album. The bass is outstanding. The bass playing is outstanding. Then you've got Jamie Berger, his first appearance, I believe, on a W.E.T album from Talisman. So another addition to the T from W.E.T. Just a brilliant performance by him. All the guys just across this album are fantastically technically brilliant, and every time these guys come together, it's just a monster of a result. It's a monster of an album. I love all the W.E.T albums, and their sound has changed over the years. I'd say they may be heavier at times now than they used to be at the beginning of this project. But the basic elements are there. I think it's just got heavier in production as well. I think there's a lot more oomph to Eric Martinson's production. But I think in general, their sound has developed, maybe veering more towards, heavier rock, harder rock. But it's still W.E.T, without a doubt. And of course, this album, like all the other W.E.T albums, is filled with huge stadium-filling choruses, technically outstanding musicianship, and flawless songwriting. So back in August, I interviewed, you can check this out on my channel, Eric and Magnus Henriksson, and we talked about the new W.E.T album, and I've just been sort of waiting ever since. And it's nearly upon us. Like I said, March the 28th, so not long now, and you all get to hear this brilliant album. And time will tell. It's really hard to tell. I've had a few listens to this album already, but it is hard to tell at the moment where it stands, in my favourites of their catalogue. It's really hard to tell with that many listens. All I can say is it sounds outstanding. The debut is always, as many artists always do, the debut album really does hold a special place in my heart as well. When I first found the band. But the last album, Retransmission, maybe took over as my favourite album. So, you know, they've got some brilliant albums across all their catalogue. They're all outstanding, but this one is just outstanding as well, just to join in that brilliance. Their music is, as it says on the promo actually to me, is equally classic and equally contemporary, and that does really explain W.E.T. I could never really listen to them, you know, if you put this on for someone, I don't think they could ever say that is out of the 80s. It hasn't got that sound. It's got the melody and everything and the huge stadium filling choruses, but it's definitely got a contemporary, new, modern, fresh sound to it as well. And that of course comes from Eric Martinson's production. It's just amazing. I mean, I think he's one of the best producers out there. Every, you know, album that he does for any other band as well, it just pops in the mix. It's just a perfect balance. But let's get down to the important bit, the songs. So the album kicks off with Believer. This was the lead single actually. Frenetic, heavy, but of course melodic as hell. Sort of Jeff's smooth, unmistakable and irresistible soulful vocals kick in, and you're just, man, yeah, they're back. For me, this feels like a nod to the first couple of W.E.T. albums for me. It's in almost more basic sort of feel, hitting hard. I've talked about Eric Martinson's mix already on this album, but man, when you hear this song, it lets every guitar lick, every squeal, the thump of the bass and the pan of every drum, it just pops so good. A masterclass in how to make an album sound huge. Next up, I want to talk about This House Is on Fire. It's the second track. This one sees Eric sharing vocals with Jeff. It's an uplifting track that will make you hum along long after the song ends. It's irresistibly catchy, and that's typical W.E.T. It really is. Considering Eric churns music out at an unbelievable rate throughout every year, there is not a drop in quality with the songwriting as it's seen on this album and this song. Chorus after chorus just hits so hard. What Are You Waiting For is the next track I want to talk about. Again, Jeff shares vocals with Eric in what is a beast of a song. This is W.E.T. at their best. The track is epic sounding and sounds stadium filling. A song that sounds like it should be just universally loved, you know, by everyone. It has everything. A brilliant entry into the already brilliant W.E.T. discography. Next up, I want to talk about Love Conquers All. This is a ballad. Eric said back in August when I spoke to him that ballads are the hardest songs to write, but when he writes them, he's one of the best at it for sure. Jeff's perfect vocal just glides along this track like only he could do. W.E.T's harmonising backing vocals are also brilliant, as good as anyone in the business, and they just fill up this song like giving a warmth to this recording. Where Are the Heroes Now is the next track I want to talk about. This is the new single, maybe the best song on the album, maybe one of the best songs I've ever written. This is a massive highlight on this brilliant release. For the third time, Eric and Jeff share vocals. Words can't express, man, the brilliance of this track. Epic, timeless. This is easily one of the best tracks of W.E.T's catalogue that I've just said. Magnus Henriksen provides us with an extended and brilliant guitar solo just to out this song as the outro. Absolutely flawless. Next up, I want to talk about Pleasure, Pain, another ballad. A bit darker, this one, a dark ballad that just rips you immediately as it comes on. Clean guitar and a distant high sort of guitar note going over these excellent verses, with Jeff just sounding perfect with his soulful sort of range. Then the band hit hard with a chorus, and the chorus just comes out of nowhere. It's brilliant, amazing stuff. The next track I want to talk about is Stay Alive, probably the most Eclipse sounding song that you'll find on this album. It's sort of got that sort of almost folky sort of sound that they have in some of their songs now. No complaints from me though, man, because Eclipse, easily one of my favourite bands. Jeff just takes control of this song on vocals, which just shows you how, you know, we talked about those Eclipse influences across this album, which there's going to be, but it just shows you how he would fit, you know, even in Eclipse, you know, but with Eric's songwriting in general, just sounds amazing. The solo has an effect on it that Eclipse use as well on theirs. They started, I think, way back on the sort of the Wired album. It's a brilliant, great track. Then I want to talk about Day to Day, the last song on the album, the final track. I always look forward to closing tracks on W.E.T's albums, and this one doesn't let me down whatsoever. It has all the elements what make this band so great. It's hard hitting, it's epic, flawless songwriting, flawless musicianship. This track wraps up not just this album, but sort of everything what W.E.T are about. It's got absolutely everything and sums up this excellent band. So Apex, the new W.E.T album, it's amazing. Of course it is. Did we expect any less? I didn't. I don't think you guys would either. Let me know if you're going to get it in the comments below, and I'll see you soon.